What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh. This is Overlanding Now, and today we are going to be installing the brand new Ironman 4x4 suspension on the Subaru Outback Wilderness. I have my buddy Matt coming over to help me with this installation because if you've ever tried to film something and install it at the same time, it's a huge nightmare. I went with the Spec Cs. So these are the Spec Cs for the rear. And what I'll do is once we get the rear off, I will show you how much of a difference these Spec Cs are in comparison to what comes factory on the Outback Wilderness. Now, I went with the traditional spec on the front. I don't feel like getting them out of the box, but the fronts are very similar size. They're not made for much higher of a load rating. They are rated for more load than the factory ones from Subaru. But this should be an awesome addition to the Subaru Outback Wilderness. It should give us about 2 inches of lift. It'll give us more wheel travel. And the reason I went with Ironman will be revealed in this video because there are a couple of options out there, but this made the most sense, and I'm gonna explain why. So I'm gonna get everything situated and cleaned up in here. Matt should be here in about 5 minutes. I think I just heard him pull in. And let's get started on this install. All right, so we were able to get the first one on extremely easy. And I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that I did much of anything. My hands aren't even dirty yet. Matt's on the other side now, getting the other strut assembly disconnected. The only issues, Matt told me that this might take 6.5 hours or something. He mentioned something of that nature, but this was done in 20 minutes. So you have your brake line bracket, you have your ABS sensor bracket, and then you got your 2 top bolts and your 3 strut bolts up top. And literally it came off super easy. We put this one on super easy. He's over there working on the other side now, so I'm gonna get a little bit of the video of him kind of taking the stuff apart so you have an idea of what you're doing if you're gonna try to do this. But these things are massive so far, and I'm excited to get it on the floor and see what it actually looks like.
There it is. There we go.
All right, so we're back on the passenger side, and after Matt got here at 10 o'clock, we talked, and we've got both front strut assemblies mounted, attached, installed, reconnected, and it's 11:15. 1 hour, which is pretty impressive. So now we get to hoist these back up on to the lugs, get this tightened back up, and then we will move on to the back, where I think it's going to be a little bit more work, but not anything crazy. And by the way, this is so much easier than the 37. All right, so I'm not sure if you can tell, but once we set this back down, the camber of the wheels has this top side pushed out pretty far. So we were able to get everything back down, but I don't know how much lift, and we didn't measure the front fender, but we're going to measure the rear fender here in a second before we put the suspension on the rear because, I mean, it's significantly taller. I'm sure everything's going to settle a little bit, so we're going to lose some of that height over time. But I mean, this wheel well gap has increased every bit of 2 inches, which is, I mean, if that brings that Wilderness up to 13, almost 14 and a half inches after the tires and the lift, I mean, that's a lot. That's a heck of a lot. My Power Wagon has 16.2 inches of ground clearance from the factory. So we're definitely working with a lot more. So we're going to move around to the back, get the back jacked up, take some measurements so we can see exactly where this thing is before and after. All right, so on the rear, we're going to measure this time because I want to know how much lift we actually get, because the front, pretty astonishing, I'm going to be honest. All right, so we got 33 1/4 to the bottom of the wheel well. So what we'll do is we're going to jack this up, get these tires off, and then we'll see how much lift we get from the suspension. All right, so in order to get to everything back here for the struts, you have to take all of your stuff out of the back to get to those 2 bolts. So right now we're just disassembling everything, and then we should be able to drop these out here in just a minute. Okay, so we were able to get the one side out, and this actually caused a little bit more of an issue. We were able to get it out, but it was just tougher to get everything disconnected. Now here's the difference between the two. And the only real difference on these is these are the Spec Cs, so I believe they're up to 440 pounds of additional load. They're exactly 2 inches longer than the original stock version. So we're going to get this other side off, and then we will throw this on and start working through the subframe spacers. Ready when you are. All right, so the hardest thing that we've kind of run into is just the subframe drop that you have to do. There's some spacers that come with the kit, and because we have the LP Adventure rock sliders on here, these already have a 2-inch subframe spacer attached to the rock slider themselves. So what we're doing is going through and getting all of the bolts disconnected so then we can put the spacers where they need to go, and then we'll be able to bolt everything back up, and then hopefully should be able to get those struts put back on and kind of see where we're at in terms of lift. All right, so after dropping the subframe down, you have a spacer, you have 4 spacers in total. One is up front, one is in the back, and then there's a bracket that runs along the rear where your sway bar is kind of connected to that requires 2 spacers. The kit comes with 4, and they look just like this, but you don't need all 4 of them if you have an Outback Wilderness. I'm not sure what what Subaru vehicles need them or what year, but we only needed to use 2. So now we got the spacers in. We're going to trim back a little bit of this plastic because we're kind of in the way down here, so we're going to trim back the plastic, and then we're going to have to install the brake line extension brackets just for that down travel. This will allow more down travel without messing with that brake line. So we're getting closer and closer. We're going to finish up that side, and then we're going to trim this side's plastic, and we will start reassembling everything and get it put back together.
Mouthful of...
That's Moab.
Yeah, mouthful of Moab right there. me.
Okay, so after a full day of work, mostly for Matt, we were able to get everything done. We got the entire suspension installed, everything fastened back up. We took it on a little drive, made sure it rode well. We are going to get the alignment done, but we did increase our ride height 3 inches in the rear, so we got 3 inches of lift in the rear. Now, after everything settles, that suspension settles down, I don't think we'll have that. We'll probably have, around 2. But 3 is what we have right now. The front also came up 2 inches. That's a guess because I didn't take the measurement like I should have right in the beginning when we started. But she looks great. She's tall. It's big. It's gotten so much bigger. The ride is fantastic so far. Obviously, this is not going to be a long-term review video, but I am happy so far with what I received from the suspension. Now, on our next video, what I'm going to talk about is why we went with Ironman, because there are other options out there. So if you guys haven't already, subscribed to the channel so you could come along for the adventures and be a part of that next video. That'll probably be in a week or so after I get my hands around it and feel what it drives like and just get a better understanding of what people can expect if they go this route on their Subaru Outback Wilderness. So thank you for watching. Thank you for coming along. I'm going to leave you with a couple of shots of the Subaru outside so you can kind of see what it looks like now after we put on the lift. See you on the next one.